What's up, YouTube family? Welcome back to Word of Mouth. My name is PJ, and today I have a different type of video for you. It's the first chance that you're going to be able to see the Word of Mouth podcast on YouTube. The podcast is just a different way, a different platform for me to reach out and let all you guys know, guys and women know about Black-owned businesses. And this episode is going to be very informative. We touch on a lot of key topics, so make sure you watch until the end. And also comment below and let me know if you like this type of video, and also if you like learning about the business. Well, I'm not going to hold y'all up too much longer. Let's just hop right into the interview.
Start with the vision, then make a killing. You gon' make you $1 million, they gon' make you a villain.
Or Uber was on the stock market for you able to invest in the stock market. They had other investors that were able to invest in the very, very beginning stages of it before they actually released themselves on the stock market called an IPO. And so this would be the portion for that for Black business owners. Is that correct?
That is correct. And that's actually how some of the greatest wealth is created, is being a part of something called private equity.
Yeah.
Now, we will say this, not every business on our platform does an IPO. So there are three primary ways that an investor can get their money back. One is through an IPO, meaning that you go on a stock exchange and your stocks become public. The second is the company is sold. So you'll see, for example, companies like Carol's Daughter, or, Instagram sold to Facebook for $19 billion. You'll see these acquisitions, but there are acquisitions that are done for $30 million, $50 million, $100 million all the time, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And then you as an investor can get your money back that way. The third way is through something called dividends. So the company is profitable. They say, we're going to take a portion of our profits and we're going to give it back to investors. That's called a dividend. So even in your small businesses, you do dividends all the time. You make money and you take some of it out. That is a dividend just for you. So the same works in our process as well. We also have another method that will be coming out in the next few years around a secondary market, where after a certain amount of time, because the SEC requires that you have to hold on to the shares for a certain amount of time. But after a certain amount of time, we're going to have our own secondary market as well for you to be able to exchange those shares. So there's going to be a lot of great things happening within the 10K community.
That's awesome. I always knew what a dividend was. Well, I didn't always know, but once I learned what a dividend was, I thought it was only for businesses that were on the stock market. So private companies do their own private dividends.
They do. They call it a distribution. They call it a distribution, but yes, it's the same concept. Yes.
Wow. That's crazy. I didn't even know that, but that's totally dope. So when we say pitches, is it, how will the pitches be? Are you going to is it going to be on the web or okay.
Yeah, so it will be virtual pitches. We call them Bet on Black pitches, and they will be virtual. And the entrepreneur will probably take about a half hour, and they will talk about their business. So what type of product or service do they have? How long have they been in business? Are they making any revenues? Are they making any profits? And revenues or profits are different. That'll come during the investor education where we talk about that. They will talk about what their marketing plan is, who their team is, how much money are they raising? What are they raising the money for? How do we get our money back? When do we get our money back? All of those things are discussed in the pitch. Okay. And then the crowd has an opportunity, the investors have an opportunity to ask questions of that entrepreneur. Then after that live pitch session, let's say, hey, you're doing your research, you forget to ask a question. No problem. By SEC regulations, this is the law, we have to leave the portal open for a certain amount of time for you as the investor to come back and ask additional questions of that entrepreneur. So you can do that. They will answer those questions. Most likely it'll be publicly so that everybody on the platform can see what those answers are. And then at that time, you can decide if you want to invest in that business.
Okay.
The maximum amount that can be raised is $1,070,000. $1,070,000 is the maximum. But the minimum for us will be $10,000 on the platform. So, and that's decided on, again, by the entrepreneur.
Okay. What is there a maximum for an individual to invest?
It depends. Go ahead, Swan. I'm sorry.
Say it depends on the requirements. So for most people who are unaccredited investors, the maximum is about $2,200 for most people. But for accredited investors, it can go up way higher than that. It really depends on your income and your net worth, right? And net worth in this scenario does not include your primary home. So there's a calculation that the investor can do so that they know where they stand in regards to that minimum.
Okay. And that's $2,200 a year.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So unaccredited investors can probably invest up to $2,200 a year, and then accredited investors, they almost have no cap. Okay.
They have a pretty high cap.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So, how many businesses do you plan on being funded each year once it's up and running?
So we're going to start with one a week because we really want to do this right. We really want the community to focus on one business a week. However, I have no doubt in my mind that within 2 years, we're going to have 1 million investors as part of this community. The more investors we have, the more businesses we're able to fund, because we have an internal calculation of how many businesses we're able to fund based on the number of active members we have within the community. So, I would love to see us be able to do several a week. And again, for each investor, you're coming up with something called a portfolio. So your portfolio will have different industries in it. It'll have different businesses based on where they are in their life cycles. Some businesses will come on and they would have been around for 20 years. Other businesses will come on and they're just a little bit shy of being an idea on a napkin, and everything in between. So you will, again, within the investor education, one of the things we're going to talk about are the best practices of you pulling together your portfolio. But then based on that, you can decide how many businesses you want to fund on an annual basis.
Okay.
So I'd like to talk a little bit more about the investor education. We touched on it a little bit, but it is a big component of what we're offering. We know that if we're trying to build generational wealth, we have to couple that with education so that, one, the investor that is now gaining access to these assets, they know what to do with them, right? They know how to keep them secure. They know what decisions to make to build the portfolio that Cherie just talked about. And then for the entrepreneur, there's going to be training around how do they, what do they do after the raise, right? So they raise the amount they're looking for, and maybe they exceed that. Maybe they were only looking for $35,000, but the community rallied behind and they really believed in the idea, and they raised the whole $1,070,000. What do they do now that they've got $1 million in the bank, right? And so how do they manage that? How do they budget? How do they prioritize what to do first in the business to help grow and scale the business? And so there's going to be education around all of that for both entities, because again, we know that knowledge is what's going to get us out of this, right? Get us through this. And that's for whatever level or stage you are in your investment journey, right? I still need education. Cherie still needs education. Someone who's never invested before will need education. And so, we hope to provide training that takes people from the bare minimum of how do you even, first of all, what is a budget, right? And
Yeah.
then how do you budget, all the way to, opening a family bank or starting a family office, which is how, rich people secure their funds for generations to come. And so, we want to provide that education along with the opportunity that for anyone who joins the 10K project.
Okay. So basically, you'll be able to log in as either an investor or an entrepreneur.
Start with the vision, then make a killing. You gon' make you $1 million, they gon' make you a villain.